My brother broke my wrist and kept injuring me, but my parents said that I should toughen up until the one test result destroyed their favorite son. Growing up, I played soccer with my older brother Tyler every weekend at the park near our house. I was 14 and he was 17, and our parents loved that we had this thing we did together. They'd bring folding chairs and cheer us on while we practiced drills and played one-on-one. Tyler was bigger and stronger, so obviously he usually won, but it was still fun until junior year hit, and he started getting really aggressive about everything. The first time he deliberately tripped me, I thought it was an accident. I went down hard and scraped my knee pretty bad. My mom ran over with Band-Aids while my dad told me to walk it off. Tyler said he was going for the ball and I got in the way. The next weekend he shoulder-checked me into the goalpost. I hit my head and saw stars for a minute. My parents said that's just how boys play, and I needed to toughen up if I wanted to keep playing with someone 3 years older. Tyler didn't even pretend to apologize that time. After that, every practice got worse. He'd slide tackle me when I didn't even have the ball. He'd elbow me in the ribs during headers. He'd step on my ankles when we were doing footwork drills. I started showing up to school with bruises all over my legs and arms. My PE teacher asked if everything was okay at home. I told him my brother and I played competitive soccer. He said I should be more careful. My parents saw the bruises too, but they just bought me shin guards and told me Tyler was preparing me for real games. They said when I made varsity next year, I'd thank him for not going easy on me. Tyler loved that they took his side. He started calling me soft in front of them, and they'd laugh. One Saturday, Tyler kicked the ball directly at my face from 5 feet away. It knocked me backward and gave me a bloody nose. While my mom was tilting my head back and holding tissues to my face, Tyler told our dad I needed to learn to block better. My dad actually agreed and said reaction time was important. That night, I told my parents I didn't want to play with Tyler anymore. They said I was being a bad sport, and that Tyler was just passionate about the game. My mom said if I quit now, I'd regret it later. My dad said Tyler wouldn't respect me if I couldn't handle a little physical play. So I kept going, but I started playing differently. I stopped trying to win and just focused on not getting hurt. Tyler noticed immediately and got even rougher. He started tackling me when our parents weren't looking, then helping me up before they turned around. He'd throw elbows during corner kicks and claim it was accidental contact. The worst part was, he'd get this look on his face right before he did something, like he was enjoying it. 3 weeks before soccer tryouts, Tyler completely lost it during practice. I'd actually gotten past him with the ball and was about to score when he came up behind me and kicked my legs out from under me. Not a slide tackle, just straight up kicked the back of my knees. I went down face first and felt something pop in my wrist. Tyler stood over me and said I should have passed instead of showing off. My parents finally took me to urgent care, but only because my wrist was swelling up. The doctor said it was sprained and asked how it happened. My mom said it was a soccer accident. The doctor looked at all my other bruises and old scrapes and asked if I'd had any other soccer accidents recently. My dad laughed and said boys will be boys. The doctor didn't laugh. He said he wanted to run some tests just to make sure everything was healing properly. My parents thought he was overreacting, but agreed. While we waited for my x-ray results, the doctor came back and said he wanted to examine Tyler too, just as a precaution since we practiced together so much. My parents were confused, but Tyler looked nervous for the first time. The doctor said he noticed Tyler seemed to be breathing heavily and sweating, even though we'd been sitting in the waiting room for an hour. My mom said Tyler was naturally athletic and probably just warm. The doctor insisted on blood work for both of us, saying he wanted to check for any underlying conditions that might affect healing or cause excessive aggression during physical activity. Tyler tried to leave, but my dad made him stay. A week later, we got called back to the hospital. The doctor sat us all down and explained that Tyler's blood work showed extremely elevated hormone levels, specifically testosterone that was way outside normal range. He said it was consistent with steroid use. Tyler's face went white. Tyler pushed his chair back and stood up fast, heading for the door like he could just walk out of this whole situation. The doctor moved to block the doorway before Tyler got there, not grabbing him or anything, but just standing there with his hands up in a calm way. The doctor said Tyler's testosterone levels were dangerously high and required immediate follow-up testing and medical evaluation to check for organ damage. My parents looked at each other with these confused and angry expressions, like they couldn't believe what they were hearing. My mom opened her mouth to say something, but the doctor kept talking in this serious tone that made everyone stay quiet. He explained that steroid use in teenagers could cause permanent damage, and Tyler needed more blood work done today. A nurse came in with a clipboard full of consent forms and handed them to my dad, who just stared at the papers without signing anything. The doctor waited, still blocking the door, until my dad finally grabbed a pen and started filling out the forms with shaky handwriting. Tyler sat back down and put his head in his hands, while the nurse tied a rubber band around his arm to draw more blood. The doctor pulled over a rolling stool and sat down facing all of us, his hands folded together like he was about to explain something important. He started talking about what anabolic steroids do to a teenager's body and brain, using words like increased aggression and severe mood swings and violent behavior changes. My mom kept shaking her head back and forth saying Tyler would never do drugs, that he was a good kid who worked hard. But I wasn't looking at my mom or the doctor. I was watching Tyler's face go from white to bright red as the doctor listed off symptoms that perfectly matched every behavior change over the past year. The anger that came out of nowhere, the way he'd lose control during practice, how he started getting mean even when we weren't playing soccer. Tyler's leg was bouncing up and down really fast, and he was staring at the floor tiles like he wanted to disappear into them. The doctor asked Tyler directly if any of these symptoms sounded familiar, and Tyler just nodded without looking up. My dad asked what the doctor was suggesting, his voice getting loud and defensive. The doctor said the blood work didn't lie, and Tyler's hormone levels were consistent with steroid use over several months. The room got really quiet, except for the sound of my mom crying softly. Tyler finally lifted his head and looked at our parents with this desperate expression. He admitted he started taking steroids last spring when college scouts began showing interest in players from our region. His voice cracked when he said it, like he was about to cry too. Tyler said everyone on the varsity team knows guys who use them, and he felt like he needed an edge to get noticed for scholarships. He looked at my dad when he said our family can't afford college without financial aid. My dad's face went from confused to absolutely furious in about 2 seconds. He stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor and started yelling about how Tyler threw away his entire future. My dad demanded to know where Tyler even got illegal drugs, his voice getting louder with every word. Tyler yelled back that Dad was the one who'd been pressuring him about scholarships since freshman year. Tyler stood up too, and they were facing each other across the small exam room. Tyler said our family was counting on him to get a free ride to college, that Dad reminded him every single day how much was riding on his soccer career. My mom tried to say something, but both of them kept yelling over her. The doctor stood up and raised his voice just enough to cut through their argument. He said very firmly that they needed to stop and listen, because this was serious. The doctor explained that Tyler needed to stop using steroids immediately, but had to do it under medical supervision because quitting cold turkey could be dangerous. He pulled out his phone and started making calls right there in the room to schedule follow-up appointments with an endocrinologist. The doctor made it very clear this wasn't optional, that Tyler would be monitored weekly until his hormone levels stabilized. Then the doctor turned to my parents and said they needed to discuss my injuries now. My whole body tensed up because I knew this was my chance to finally tell the truth. I spoke up for the first time since we got to the hospital, and my voice was shaking so bad I could barely get the words out. I told the doctor about every deliberate hit and trip and tackle over the past year. My parents both tried to interrupt me, saying I was exaggerating or misremembering, but the doctor held up his hand and told them to let me finish. So I kept going, describing how Tyler would hurt me when they weren't looking and then help me up before they turned around. I told the doctor about the elbows during corner kicks that Tyler claimed were accidental contact. I explained how Tyler would get this look on his face right before he did something, like he was planning it. The doctor listened to everything without interrupting, just nodding and taking notes on his tablet. When I finished talking, the doctor asked if he could examine the bruises on my arms and legs. I pulled up my sleeves and pant legs to show him all the marks in different stages of healing. The doctor took photos with his tablet for my medical record, and I heard my mom gasp when she saw how many bruises there actually were. He asked me directly if I ever felt unsafe at home, and I admitted that I dreaded every weekend knowing we had soccer practice. I told him Tyler would find ways to hurt me, while our parents sat in their folding chairs and cheered. My mom started crying harder, saying she had no idea it was deliberate. She kept repeating that she thought it was just rough play between brothers, that boys are physical when they compete. My dad sat completely silent with his arms crossed tight against his chest, and his jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscles moving. I couldn't tell if he was angry at Tyler for hurting me or angry at me for telling the doctor everything. The doctor closed his tablet and looked at my parents with this really serious expression. He explained that my wrist sprain could have been much worse, that I was lucky I didn't break any bones. Then he said the repeated head impacts, like when Tyler shoulder-checked me into the goalpost, carried serious concussion risks. The doctor told my parents he was mandated by law to file a report with Child Protective Services. My mom asked why that was necessary when it was just a sports accident. The doctor said very clearly that this constituted sibling abuse regardless of whether it happened during sports activities. My dad's face went pale, and he asked what that meant for our family. The doctor said someone from CPS would contact them within a few days to schedule interviews. The nurse came back with papers about Tyler's follow-up appointments and medication to help with the steroid withdrawal symptoms. We all walked out to the parking lot without talking, and the drive home was completely silent, except for my mom's occasional sniffling from the front seat. Tyler stared out his window at the houses going by, and I held my wrapped wrist carefully in my lap so it wouldn't bump against anything. My dad gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white, and I watched his hands the whole way home because I was too scared to look at anyone's face. When we got home, Tyler went straight upstairs without looking at anyone, and I heard his door close hard enough to shake the wall. My parents stood in the kitchen whispering to each other while I grabbed a glass of water and went to my room. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling and holding my wrapped wrist against my chest. Around 10 that night, I heard my parents' bedroom door close, and then their voices started getting louder. My dad's voice came through the wall first, saying something about how my mom always made excuses for Tyler and never taught him to control himself. My mom's voice got higher, and she said my dad was the one who pushed Tyler too hard about scholarships and made everything about soccer. They went back and forth like that for maybe 20 minutes, their voices rising and falling, and I pulled my pillow over my head, but I could still hear them blaming each other for what Tyler did. The next morning, my dad knocked on Tyler's door at 7 and told him to get up and come downstairs. I heard Tyler's footsteps in the hallway and followed them down to find my dad standing in the kitchen with his arms crossed. My dad held out his hand and told Tyler to give him his phone right now. Tyler argued that he needed it for the team group chat, and my dad's face went red as he said Tyler wouldn't be on the team much longer once the school found out about the steroids. Tyler handed over his phone, and my dad said he was grounded until further notice, which meant no friends, no going out, nothing but school and home. My mom appeared in the kitchen doorway and started making pancakes without saying anything. She does that when she's stressed, just starts cooking like it'll fix everything. The smell of butter and batter filled the kitchen, but none of us were hungry. I poured cereal and pushed it around my bowl while Tyler sat across from me staring at the table. My mom put a stack of pancakes in the middle, but nobody touched them. She kept glancing at me with this expression that looked guilty and uncomfortable at the same time. Finally, she said she was sorry she didn't believe me about Tyler being too rough during practice. Her voice had this defensive edge to it, though, like she was apologizing because she had to, not because she really meant it. I just nodded and kept eating my cereal one piece at a time. Monday morning came and my dad stayed home from work. I got ready for school and came downstairs to find him sitting at the kitchen table with his phone and a cup of coffee. He told me to go get my backpack, and I knew he was waiting for me to leave before he made the call. Instead, I grabbed my stuff and sat on the stairs where I could hear through the kitchen doorway. My dad dialed and asked for the athletic director. His voice sounded tight and embarrassed as he explained that his son Tyler had tested positive for elevated hormone levels consistent with steroid use. He said the family was taking this very seriously and wanted to report it before anyone else found out. I heard him answer questions about when we found out and what doctor did the testing. His shame came through in every word. That afternoon, the school called and required Tyler to meet with the athletic director, principal, and head coach at 3. My dad left work early and picked Tyler up from the school. They drove off together and my mom started pacing around the kitchen the second they left. She wiped down counters that were already clean. She reorganized the junk drawer. She folded dish towels that were already folded. I did my homework at the kitchen table and watched her move from one pointless task to another for 2 whole hours. When the front door finally opened, Tyler walked straight past us and up the stairs. His door slammed so hard a picture frame rattled on the wall. My dad came into the kitchen and told my mom that Tyler was suspended from the soccer team while they did a full investigation. He said the school might kick Tyler out of all sports permanently because they have a zero-tolerance drug policy. Steroids counted as performance-enhancing drugs, even though Tyler wasn't caught using them at the school. My mom pressed her hand against her mouth and sat down hard in a kitchen chair. That evening, my parents called both of us into the living room for a family meeting. We all sat down in different spots, nobody close to anyone else. My dad started by saying we needed to address what happened. Then he immediately switched to talking about Tyler's future and how this suspension could ruin his chances at college. He talked about scholarship opportunities disappearing and how this would follow Tyler forever. I listened for maybe 3 minutes before I couldn't take it anymore. I interrupted and asked if anyone was going to talk about how Tyler hurt me on purpose for months while they watched and told me to toughen up. My mom said we would get to that, but right now they needed to figure out Tyler's situation first. That made it so clear that I still wasn't the priority, that even after everything, Tyler's future mattered more than what he did to me. I stood up and told them I was done being ignored. I said a doctor had to force them to take me seriously, and I wasn't going to sit there while they planned how to save Tyler's reputation. My dad's voice got sharp, and he ordered me to sit down and show some respect. I walked out instead and went upstairs to my room. I locked my door and sat on my bed with my back against the wall. Through the wall I shared with Tyler's room, I heard him start crying. His voice came through muffled but clear enough that I could hear him telling our parents he felt so much pressure to be perfect and get scholarships. He said he thought steroids were his only option because he was so scared of letting everyone down. My mom's voice got soft and comforting. My dad asked why Tyler didn't just talk to them about the pressure. I sat there listening and wanted to scream that I had tried talking to them for months about Tyler hurting me, and they never listened to me at all. The next morning I walked into school and immediately felt people staring at me. Tyler's suspension had somehow spread overnight, and kids I barely knew kept coming up asking what happened to him. I stuck to the same answer every time, saying he got in trouble and wouldn't be playing soccer anymore. Nobody seemed satisfied with that vague response, but I wasn't about to tell them about the steroids or the hospital or any of it. By third period, the rumors were completely out of control, with people saying Tyler got arrested or expelled or caught doing drugs at the school. None of it was exactly right, but none of it was completely wrong either. Between classes, I grabbed books from my locker, and this kid from Tyler's team appeared next to me. He played midfield and had been to our house for team dinners before. He got right in my face, asking if I was the one who got Tyler kicked off the team. His voice was loud enough that other kids in the hallway stopped to watch. I opened my mouth to answer, but didn't get a chance because my PE teacher suddenly stepped between us. He told the kid to get to the office right now, and the kid argued that he just wanted to know what happened to his teammate. My PE teacher wasn't having it and pointed down the hallway until the kid finally walked away. Then my teacher turned to me and asked if I was okay. I nodded, and he asked if I needed to talk to the school counselor about everything going on. I hadn't planned on it, but something about the way he asked made me realize maybe I should. I ended up in the counselor's office during lunch. She was a woman in her 40s with gray hair and a kind face who already knew about the CPS report from the hospital. She asked how I was feeling about everything, and I sat there in the chair across from her desk trying to figure out how to answer. Finally, I admitted I was angry that my parents still seemed more worried about Tyler's future than about what he did to me. She listened without interrupting and wrote some notes on a pad. She asked if I felt safe at home now, and I said yes, because Tyler hadn't touched me since the hospital. She said that was good, but the fact that it took a doctor's intervention to make me safe was concerning. We talked for maybe 20 minutes, and she said I could come back anytime I needed to talk. That week, a CPS caseworker showed up at our house on Thursday afternoon. She was younger than I expected, maybe in her 30s, carrying a leather folder and wearing business clothes. My mom answered the door, and her face went pale when the caseworker introduced herself. She said she needed to interview everyone separately and asked to speak with me first. We sat in the living room while my parents and Tyler waited in different rooms. The caseworker asked detailed questions about the injuries and how long they'd been happening. She wanted to know specific incidents and dates as much as I could remember. Then she asked if I ever felt scared of Tyler, and I told her honestly that I dreaded being alone with him. I explained that I didn't think my parents would believe me if I said the injuries were on purpose, because they never believed me before. She wrote everything down and asked if Tyler ever threatened me directly. I said no, but he didn't have to because the physical stuff was threat enough. After about 30 minutes, she thanked me and asked my mom to send Tyler in next. I went upstairs to my room, but I could hear voices through the floor. Tyler's interview went longer than mine, maybe 45 minutes. I pressed my ear against the floor near the heating vent and caught pieces of what he was saying. His voice sounded shaky, and I heard him admit he hurt me deliberately because he was angry and taking out his frustration. He said the steroids made him more aggressive, but he knew what he was doing was wrong and did it anyway. Hearing him finally admit it out loud to someone official made my chest feel tight. My parents got interviewed together after Tyler, and that took over an hour. I stayed in my room doing homework and trying not to think about what they were saying downstairs. When the caseworker finally called everyone back to the living room, she explained that she wasn't removing anyone from the home. My mom's shoulders dropped with relief, but the caseworker wasn't finished. She said the family was required to attend counseling together because the family dynamic enabled abuse to continue. She talked about favoritism and dismissiveness toward my concerns and said we needed professional help to address it. My dad immediately argued that mandatory counseling was excessive. He said this was a family matter they could handle privately without outside interference. The caseworker's expression didn't change, and she firmly explained it wasn't negotiable. She said if they refused, she would escalate the case and my parents would face more serious consequences. My dad's face turned red, but he agreed to weekly family therapy sessions. The caseworker handed my mom a list of approved therapists and left. That Saturday, I was cleaning out the garage because my mom asked me to organize the sports equipment. I pulled out old soccer balls and cones and moved aside bags of gear we hadn't used in years. In the back corner behind some camping stuff, I found Tyler's old soccer bag, the black one with the torn strap he'd stopped using last year. I unzipped it expecting to find cleats or shin guards, but instead, I found bottles of pills and small boxes with syringes inside. My stomach dropped as I realized this was Tyler's steroid stash. There were at least 6 bottles of different pills with labels I couldn't fully understand, and a box of needles still sealed in plastic. I felt sick thinking about how long he'd been using them and that he was already on steroids when he broke my wrist. I grabbed the bag and carried it inside. My parents were in the kitchen, and I walked straight to the table and dumped everything out in front of them. Pills scattered across the surface and syringes rolled toward the edge. My mom gasped and covered her mouth with her hand. My dad's face went dark red as he stared at the extent of Tyler's drug use. I looked at both of them and said, "This is what they chose to ignore while telling me to toughen up." My mom started to cry, and my dad stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. He yelled for Tyler to get downstairs right now. Tyler appeared in the doorway and stopped when he saw the table. My dad demanded to know where all this came from and how long Tyler had been using. Tyler admitted he bought the steroids online from a sketchy website using birthday money and cash from his part-time job at the grocery store. He said he spent over $300 on cycles of pills and injectable testosterone over 6 months. My dad asked why Tyler would do something so dangerous and expensive. Tyler said he felt desperate to get bigger and stronger for scouts and thought this was the only way to compete with other players who were already using them. The endocrinologist appointment happened 3 days later at a medical building downtown. We sat in another waiting room with the same tension hanging over us while Tyler filled out paperwork about his steroid use. The doctor called us back, and Tyler had to give more blood samples and pee in a cup. The endocrinologist was an older man with gray hair who looked at Tyler's chart and test results for a long time before speaking. He explained that Tyler's natural testosterone production had been suppressed by the steroids. His body stopped making its own hormones because it was getting them artificially. The doctor said Tyler would need monitoring for months, maybe longer, to see if his levels went back to normal. He warned that some effects might be permanent. Tyler could have fertility problems later in life. He might need hormone replacement therapy. His bone density could be affected. The list went on, and Tyler's face got whiter with each possible consequence. My mom kept asking if there was anything they could do to fix it faster, and the doctor said no. Tyler's body needed time to recover, and there were no guarantees it would fully heal. Tyler started crying right there in the doctor's office. Not quiet tears, but full-on sobbing that he'd ruined his body and his future for nothing. My mom immediately moved to comfort him, putting her arm around his shoulders and telling him it would be okay. The doctor held up his hand and said Tyler needed to understand the serious consequences of his choices. He looked directly at Tyler and said recovery would require taking full responsibility for what he did. My mom pulled back, looking confused and hurt. The doctor scheduled follow-up appointments every month and gave Tyler information about support groups for athletes who used performance-enhancing drugs. The drive home was quiet, except for Tyler's occasional sniffles from the back seat. Our first family counseling session was the following week at an office in a strip mall between a nail salon and a pizza place. The waiting room had boring landscape paintings and magazines nobody wanted to read. When the therapist called us back, we walked into her office and everyone sat as far apart as possible. Tyler took the chair in the corner. My parents sat on opposite ends of the couch. I picked the other chair near the door. The therapist was a woman probably in her 50s with short brown hair and glasses. She introduced herself and explained that her job was to help our family communicate honestly and rebuild trust. She had a calm voice that made it clear she'd heard plenty of messed up family stories before. The therapist asked each of us to describe what happened from our perspective. Tyler went first, and I could tell he'd been thinking about what to say. He admitted he hurt me on purpose. He said the steroids made him angry, but he chose to take his frustration out on me because he knew our parents would take his side. My mom made a small noise like she wanted to interrupt, but the therapist gave her a look and she stayed quiet. When it was my turn, I told the therapist about every injury, the deliberate trip that scraped my knee, the shoulder check into the goalpost, the ball kicked at my face, the slide tackles when I didn't have possession, every time I asked to stop playing with Tyler, every time my parents dismissed my pain and told me to toughen up. My voice cracked when I described how alone I felt, knowing my own family wouldn't protect me from my brother. I had to stop and breathe a few times to get through it all. My mom cried through most of the session. She kept saying she was sorry and that she should have listened to me. The therapist waited until my mom finished talking and then gently pointed out that apologies need to be backed up by changed behavior, not just words. She asked my mom what specific actions she would take differently going forward. My mom stammered and said she would believe me and take my concerns seriously, but couldn't give concrete examples. The therapist wrote something down in her notebook. My dad remained defensive the whole time. He argued that he was trying to prepare me for real competition and that he didn't know Tyler was deliberately hurting me. He thought it was just rough play between brothers. The therapist challenged this directly. She asked how many bruises and injuries it took before he questioned whether something was wrong. My dad's face turned red, and he said he trusted Tyler's explanation that it was accidental. The therapist asked if that was really trust, or if it was easier to believe Tyler because acknowledging the truth would mean admitting he failed to protect his younger son. My dad didn't answer that. The therapist identified our family pattern of prioritizing Tyler's achievements and future over my safety and well-being. She said this favoritism created an environment where Tyler felt entitled to hurt me, and I felt voiceless. Both parents contributed by dismissing my concerns every time I brought them up. She used the word enabling, and my mom flinched like she'd been slapped. The therapist explained that Tyler's steroid use and violent behavior didn't happen in a vacuum. The family system allowed it to continue by making excuses and looking the other way. By the end of the first session, the therapist assigned homework to everyone. My parents had to write down specific instances where they dismissed my injuries and think about why they chose to believe Tyler over me. Tyler had to write about what drove him to hurt me and what he was really angry about underneath the steroid rage. I didn't get homework, which felt weird, but also fair since I was the one who got hurt. The therapist scheduled our next appointment for the following week and said this was just the beginning of a long process. She warned us that things might get harder before they got better because we were pulling back layers of family dysfunction that had been building for years. Nobody talked on the drive home. A few days later, Tyler knocked on my bedroom door. I was doing homework at my desk and didn't want to deal with him, but he knocked again. I opened the door and just looked at him without saying anything. He asked if we could talk, and I was wary, but let him in anyway. He sat in my desk chair while I sat on my bed with my arms crossed, waiting to hear what he had to say. Tyler rubbed his hands on his jeans and stared at the floor for a long time before he started talking. He said he'd been thinking about what the therapist said during our sessions, and he finally understood something he hadn't wanted to admit before. He looked up at me, and his eyes were red like he'd been crying earlier. He said he was jealous of me because I didn't have the same pressure he did. Our parents expected him to be perfect, to get scholarships, to be the star athlete who would make the family proud and pay for college through sports. But they let me just be a kid. They didn't put those same expectations on me, and he resented that I got to enjoy soccer while he felt crushed by what everyone wanted from him. I stayed quiet and kept my arms crossed because I wasn't ready to feel sorry for him yet. Tyler kept going, his voice getting shakier. He admitted that hurting me made him feel powerful when everything else in his life felt out of control. The steroids made him angrier and more aggressive, but the cruelty was his choice. He knew what he was doing every single time he kicked me or elbowed me or tackled me too hard. He said he's sorry for making me afraid of my own brother, and a tear actually ran down his face when he said it. I watched him cry and felt this weird mix of anger and sadness. Part of me wanted to tell him it was okay, but the bigger part remembered every bruise, every time I flinched when he came near me. Every weekend I dreaded going to the park. I asked him why he didn't just quit soccer if he hated the pressure so much. Tyler wiped his face with his sleeve and said he thought about quitting all the time, especially last year when the scouts started coming to games. But he was too scared of disappointing Dad and losing his identity as the athlete of the family. Everyone knew him as Tyler the soccer star. Teachers, kids at the school, our relatives, everyone. He didn't know who he'd be without that, so taking steroids seemed easier than admitting he was struggling and couldn't handle the pressure. I let him finish talking and then sat there for a minute just looking at him. He looked smaller somehow, sitting in my desk chair with his shoulders hunched. I told him I didn't forgive him. I said it clearly so he'd understand I meant it. I said I appreciated him being honest finally, but sorry doesn't erase months of deliberate pain and fear. It doesn't take back all the times I went to the school covered in bruises, or the times I felt sick knowing we had practice that weekend. I told him I needed to see real change before I could trust him again, not just words and tears. Tyler nodded and said he understood. He said he doesn't expect forgiveness right away, that he knows he doesn't deserve it yet. He promised he'd do whatever it takes to make things right, including taking his consequences without complaint and proving through his actions that he's changing. He stood up to leave and paused at my door, like he wanted to say something else, but then just left quietly. I sat on my bed for a while after he was gone, feeling drained. The next 2 weeks went by with Tyler mostly avoiding me, which was fine. We'd pass each other in the hallway at home and he'd nod but not try to talk. I could tell he wanted to say more but was respecting the space I needed. Our parents walked on eggshells around both of us, and the house felt tense all the time. At our third family therapy session, the therapist started by asking if anything had changed since our last meeting. My mom jumped in right away, talking fast like she'd been practicing what to say. She admitted she made excuses for Tyler because she was proud of his athletic success and didn't want to see his flaws. Even when I was getting hurt, she chose to believe it was accidental, because acknowledging the truth meant admitting her favorite son was capable of deliberately hurting his younger brother. The therapist asked her why Tyler's success mattered so much, and my mom's voice cracked when she said she wanted other people to see our family as successful. She wanted to be the mom of the star athlete, and she let that pride blind her to what was really happening. She looked at me when she said this, and I could see she meant it, but it still hurt knowing she picked Tyler's reputation over my safety for so long. My dad had a much harder time admitting fault. He sat with his arms crossed, his jaw tight, and kept saying he thought it was just normal sibling roughness. The therapist pushed him, asking direct questions about specific injuries I'd reported. She asked how a bloody nose from a ball kicked directly at my face from 5 feet away could be accidental. She asked how many times a kid needs to come home bruised before a parent questions what's happening. My dad's face turned red, and he said he trusted Tyler's explanations, but the therapist cut him off. She said that wasn't trust. That was choosing the easier path because acknowledging the truth would mean admitting he failed to protect his younger son. The room went silent for a minute. My dad uncrossed his arms and put his hands on his knees, staring at the floor. Finally, he said he put too much pressure on Tyler about scholarships and dismissed my injuries because he was so focused on Tyler's athletic career and our family's financial future. He said the words quietly, like they hurt to say out loud. He admitted he valued sports success over my safety, and he's ashamed of that. Hearing him actually say it made something loosen in my chest, but I still felt angry that it took a therapist forcing him to see it. The therapist spent the rest of the session helping us establish new family rules. She wrote them down on a big notepad so everyone could see. No more soccer practice between Tyler and me, ever. Regular family meetings every Sunday night to discuss concerns before they build up. A commitment that my parents will listen when I say something is wrong instead of automatically taking Tyler's side or dismissing my concerns. She made my parents repeat the rules out loud and agree to them, and made Tyler and me agree too. It felt weird having rules written down like we were little kids, but I also felt relieved having them in black and white. 2 months passed with our family going to therapy every week and actually following the new rules. Tyler went to his substance abuse counseling and saw his endocrinologist for monitoring. I played soccer with my freshman team, and my parents came to every game, cheering for me without comparing me to Tyler. Things felt different at home, still awkward sometimes, but better. Then one afternoon, Tyler came home from the school and went straight to his room without saying anything. My mom called up asking if he wanted a snack, and he said no. An hour later, my dad got home from work and knocked on Tyler's door. I was in my room doing homework, but I could hear them talking, Tyler's voice muffled and upset. My dad came out and called my mom upstairs, and they both went into Tyler's room and closed the door. I heard my mom gasp, and then everything went quiet. They stayed in there for a long time. When Tyler finally came out for dinner, his eyes were puffy and red. He sat down at the table and my parents sat on either side of him. My dad explained that Tyler received official notice from the school district that day. His athletic eligibility was revoked for the remainder of high school because of the steroid use. No college scouts would be allowed to watch him play, even if the team let him back, which they wouldn't. The scholarship opportunities he'd been chasing since freshman year were completely gone. My mom reached over and squeezed Tyler's hand. I didn't know what to say, so I just ate my dinner and listened. Tyler spent the whole next day in his room with the door closed. I heard him moving around in there, and once I heard something hit the wall, but mostly it was just quiet. My parents gave him space, though my mom kept walking past his door like she wanted to knock. The day after that, Tyler came out in the morning and sat down with our parents at the kitchen table. I was eating cereal and getting ready for school. Tyler told them he accepts the consequences of what he did. His voice was steady, not angry or crying. He said maybe it's better this way because now he can figure out who he is without soccer defining him. He said he's been Tyler the soccer player for so long that he forgot there could be other things he's good at or interested in. My dad asked what he meant, and Tyler said he'd been thinking about maybe studying sports medicine or physical therapy in college. He wanted to help athletes stay healthy instead of hurting themselves like he did. My mom started crying again, but this time she was smiling too. She said she was proud of him for accepting responsibility and thinking about his future in a new way. My dad nodded and said they'd help him research other paths to college, including academic scholarships and community college transfer programs. It was the first time I'd seen them support Tyler in something that wasn't about athletics, and I could see the relief on Tyler's face. That weekend, my parents sat down with Tyler at the kitchen table with a laptop and a stack of brochures they'd picked up from the guidance counselor's office. My mom opened a website showing community college programs, while my dad had a notebook ready to write down costs and requirements. Tyler pulled his chair closer and started reading through the nursing and physical therapy program descriptions. I was doing homework at the counter, but could hear them discussing transfer agreements with 4-year schools and how Tyler could save money by living at home for 2 years. My dad calculated numbers on his phone, while my mom bookmarked pages about academic scholarships that didn't require athletic participation. Tyler asked questions about application deadlines and prerequisite classes, and for the first time I heard genuine interest in his voice, instead of the pressure and stress that used to be there when they talked about his future. My mom printed out a checklist of things Tyler needed to do, and my dad said they'd visit 3 local community colleges next month to tour the campuses and talk to advisors. Tyler thanked them and took the papers to his room to read through everything more carefully. The following Monday, Tyler came home from the school with a packet from the counseling office. The school mandated that he attend substance abuse counseling every week in addition to our family therapy sessions. Tyler signed the consent forms without arguing, and my mom scheduled his first appointment for that Thursday. When Thursday came, Tyler drove himself to the counselor's office across town and was gone for over an hour. He came home quieter than usual, but not upset, just thoughtful. At dinner that night, he mentioned that the counselor was helping him understand the pressure he'd felt and why taking steroids seemed like a solution when it actually made everything worse. Over the next few weeks, Tyler went to counseling every Thursday after school. He started talking more openly about what he was learning, explaining how the counselor taught him different ways to handle stress and expectations. One evening, he told me the counselor said a lot of student-athletes struggle with the same pressures he did, and that asking for help was actually stronger than trying to handle everything alone. 3 months after everything started, my wrist felt completely normal again. I could bend it all the way and put weight on it without any pain. Soccer tryouts for the freshman team were coming up, and I decided to go for it. The tryouts lasted 3 days with drills and scrimmages, so the coaches could see everyone's skills. I was nervous the first day, but once I started playing, I remembered how much I actually enjoyed soccer when I wasn't scared of getting hurt. I passed the ball cleanly, made a few good defensive plays, and even scored once during a practice game. At the end of the 3rd day, the coach posted the roster and my name was on it. I made the team. My first official game was on a Saturday morning against another school in our district. My parents came and sat in the bleachers with their folding chairs and a cooler of drinks. When I scored in the second half, my mom jumped up cheering and my dad clapped and yelled my name. Nobody compared my playing to Tyler's or said I should have done something differently. They were just proud of me for being me. Tyler started coming to my games too. He'd sit with my parents in the bleachers and cheer whenever our team did something good. The first time I saw him there, I felt weird about it, wondering if he'd critique my playing or make comments about what I should have done. But he didn't. When I scored, he stood up and clapped, just like my parents did. After the game, he told me I played well and asked if I was having fun with the team. He never made it about himself or talked about how he would have handled a play differently. He just supported me. Over the next few games, I got used to seeing him there, and it stopped feeling strange. He brought water bottles for the team once and helped my coach carry equipment to the car after practice. My teammates thought it was cool that my older brother came to watch us play. In our weekly family therapy session, the therapist asked us to talk about the progress we'd made since we started coming. My mom said she was proud of how Tyler was handling his counseling and college research. My dad said he appreciated that I'd given soccer another chance and was doing well on my team. Tyler said he felt less pressure now that he wasn't trying to be perfect all the time. I said things felt better at home, but I was still working on trusting everyone again. The therapist nodded and said our family had come a long way in just a few months. She reminded us that acknowledging problems was important, but real change takes years of consistent effort, not just a few months of trying harder. She said we'd built a good foundation, but we needed to keep working at it every single week. My parents agreed and said they were committed to continuing therapy as long as we needed it. Tyler said the same thing. The therapist scheduled our next appointment and gave us homework about communication skills to practice at home. My parents started treating Tyler and me more equally in small ways that added up. My mom helped me with a history project about World War II, spending an evening looking up information with me and helping me organize my presentation. My dad taught me how to change a tire one Saturday afternoon in our driveway, showing me where the jack went and how to loosen the lug nuts. He let me do most of the work while he supervised and answered my questions. At dinner, they asked about my day and what I was learning in my classes, instead of only focusing on Tyler's situation and appointments. My mom came to my school's open house and met my teachers, asking them about my progress and what I could work on. My dad took me to get new soccer cleats and let me pick the ones I wanted instead of telling me which ones were best. These were small things, but they showed me that my parents were paying attention to me as an individual person, not just Tyler's younger brother. Tyler got a part-time job at a sporting goods store in the mall. He worked 3 afternoons a week and every Saturday, helping customers find equipment and restocking shelves. His first paycheck went into a savings account he opened specifically for college. He showed me his account balance on his phone and explained how much he was trying to save each month. One night at dinner, he mentioned he'd been reading about sports medicine and physical therapy programs. He said he liked the idea of helping athletes stay healthy and avoid injuries instead of pushing themselves too hard like he did. My dad asked questions about what kind of training those careers required, and my mom looked up salary information to show Tyler he could make a decent living doing that kind of work. Tyler seemed excited talking about a future that didn't revolve around playing soccer professionally. He said maybe his experience with steroids and injuries could help him understand what athletes go through and make him a better therapist or trainer someday. 4 months after the hospital revelation, Tyler had another appointment with his endocrinologist. My parents took him and I stayed home doing homework. When they got back, my mom was smiling and my dad looked relieved. Tyler explained that his latest blood work showed his hormone levels were starting to go back to normal. The doctor said Tyler's young age meant his body would likely recover fully, though he'd need to keep getting tested every few months for another year to make sure everything stayed on track. The doctor warned that some guys who used steroids as teenagers had permanent problems, but Tyler's results looked promising. Tyler seemed lighter after hearing that news, like a weight had been lifted. That night at dinner, he actually joked around with me about a TV show we both watched, something he hadn't done in over a year. I joined a youth soccer league that played on Sunday afternoons at fields across town. None of the kids there went to my school, so nobody knew about Tyler or what had happened with our family. It felt good to just be a player without carrying all that history. I made friends with a few guys on my team who invited me to hang out after games. We'd get pizza or go to someone's house to play video games. They liked me for who I was, not because my brother used to be a star athlete or because of any drama. I scored 3 goals in my first month with the league, and my coach said I had good instincts on the field. Playing soccer became fun again instead of something that reminded me of getting hurt. Tyler and I started playing video games together sometimes after dinner. He'd knock on my door and ask if I wanted to play the racing game we both liked or try a new game he'd downloaded. At first I was cautious, but Tyler was careful not to push me or make it competitive in a bad way. He let me pick the games and didn't get mad if I won. If I said I was tired or wanted to stop, he'd just say okay and go back to his room without making me feel guilty. We'd play for maybe half an hour or an hour, sometimes talking about school or his job, sometimes just focusing on the game. It felt like we were carefully rebuilding something that had been broken, taking small steps toward being brothers again instead of enemies. I appreciated that Tyler respected my boundaries and let me control how much time we spent together. He was proving through his actions that he really was changing, not just saying sorry and expecting everything to be fine immediately. A few weeks later, Thanksgiving rolled around and my mom started planning the menu like she always did. She asked both Tyler and me what sides we wanted, instead of just assuming Tyler's favorites would be everyone's favorites. My dad helped her cook the turkey while Tyler and I set the table together, working quietly, but without the tension that used to fill every room we shared. When we all sat down to eat, my mom said we should each share something we were grateful for before digging in. My dad went first and said he was grateful our family was still together and working on being better. My mom said she was grateful for second chances and for having 2 sons who were willing to forgive their mistakes. Tyler said he was grateful for his health coming back and for the chance to figure out who he was without soccer defining him. When it was my turn, I said I was grateful that our family was finally being honest with each other, even though it took a crisis to get here. Nobody argued or made excuses, and we ate dinner talking about normal stuff like school and work and the football game on TV. It was the first Thanksgiving in years that didn't revolve around Tyler's upcoming games or his stats or which college scouts had contacted him. We just existed as a family without the constant pressure of his athletic career hanging over everything. 6 months after that day in the hospital when everything came out, my parents knocked on my bedroom door one evening and asked if we could talk privately. I felt nervous immediately, wondering if something bad had happened, but they both looked serious and determined rather than angry. We went downstairs and sat in the living room, them on the couch and me in the armchair across from them. My dad started by saying they'd been thinking a lot about what the therapist said and about their role in what happened to me. My mom took over and said they wanted to give me a real apology, not just the quick sorry they'd said before. She explained that they'd failed me as parents by dismissing my injuries and not protecting me from Tyler. My dad added that they'd prioritized Tyler's success over my safety because they got caught up in his achievements and the idea of scholarships. He said watching him excel at soccer made them feel proud and successful as parents, and they stopped seeing what was really happening. My mom's voice cracked when she said they should have believed me the first time I said Tyler was hurting me on purpose, and they were sorry for all the times they told me to toughen up instead of listening. My dad promised they would do better every day going forward, that they'd prove through their actions that both their sons mattered equally. I sat there for a minute, processing what they'd said, and then told them I appreciated the apology, but I was still hurt. I explained that it would take time to fully trust them again, because they'd spent years showing me my feelings didn't matter compared to Tyler's success. But I could see they were really trying to change, not just saying the right words, but actually treating me differently. They nodded, and my mom said they understood, that they'd keep proving through their actions that I mattered just as much as Tyler. My dad said my voice would always be heard in our family from now on, and if I ever felt dismissed or ignored, I should call them out immediately. They both looked relieved when I said okay, like they'd been terrified I'd reject their apology completely. Life isn't perfect, and our family still has hard days when old patterns try to creep back in. Sometimes my dad still gets too focused on achievement, or my mom still makes excuses when she shouldn't. But we're all working together in therapy and at home to build something healthier than what we had before. Tyler goes to his counseling appointments every week without complaint, and his hormone levels are almost back to normal now. He got accepted to community college for next fall and seems genuinely excited about studying sports medicine. My parents ask about my soccer games and school projects with real interest, not just because they feel obligated. They come to my games and cheer for me without comparing my performance to how Tyler used to play. Tyler sits with them in the stands and celebrates when I score, and afterward we sometimes grab food together as a family. He's genuinely remorseful about what he did and keeps proving through small daily choices that he's different now. My parents are learning to listen when either of us speaks up about something bothering us, and they're treating us equally instead of putting all their attention on one son. I finally feel safe and valued in my own family for the first time in years, and while we still have work to do, we're moving in the right direction together.